there are two housing markets right now. There's the houses that just came on the market, which would have been on Tuesday, and then I
Oh,
walk them through. You do a little private showing, you and your realtor, and everybody else wants that new shiny object. You go through the private showings during the week, and then on Sunday, there's an open house, or maybe on Saturday. So that market is one of the housing markets. The second housing market that exists out there is something that's been around. If it's been sitting for 10 days or 2 weeks, that's old news. And I tell them each of these markets requires a very particular tactic and strategy. And
so
if you
good.
don't have a realtor and a lender who understands that market and what are the tactics and strategies in order to get your offer accepted, you are going to be looking for a house for a long time.
Hey everybody, Josh Metal here, and I'm with my friend Mark Pulaski, new member of the Loan Atlas. He's been in the mortgage business for only 3 years, and we were just having a conversation around the before, during, and after value proposition that he's adopted in his business. He's used that to go out and get a few new realtor relationships, a few new certified financial planner relationships, and really has helped him increase his conversion rate and really his connection and influence with clients. So first and foremost, Mark, thanks for being here. Thanks for taking a few minutes to chat with me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
So flush this out for us. What is the before, during, and after value proposition? How did you learn about it, and how are you using it in your conversations and with your referral partners?
Yeah, the crazy thing is I had a couple meetings. I want to say when I first joined, that I had to go meet with a couple of new potential prospects. And so I watched like the first 15 minutes of Ryan Grant's first. I think he was at that point. There was two videos prior to me knowing what this was that he talked about in January, I think of maybe this year.
Okay.
But I saw the video that was basically talking about how to present this to realtors. And so I only watched the first 15 minutes of it, and I saw that this was like a gold mine, the Holy Grail. And anyway, I went and I met with these two new clients, and I said, "What the hell? I'm gonna say basically what I learned in that first 15 minutes." And those clients were blown away. I've been pretty good at converting, just doing what I was doing initially. But when I presented that full before, during, and after, and I explained that 60% of what I do after is to make sure that you become a successful homeowner, it blew them away. And I knew I was onto something. And then since that point, I've gotten better because I've actually watched the video a couple of times. And then I went back and watched his two other videos that he presented. And now I've made it, I've created my own slides presentation, and I've converted 2 realtors, gotten 2 new deals. I have I know every realtor is going to work with me. I feel like when I'm presenting. And then to the clients, I can't tell you how blown away they are. I've already done 2 post-closing calls that I had not adapted this system to yet. And I've already talked to several financial planners, of which I got 2 new leads because they love the system so much. They were like, wait a minute, you do all this? And it ties in exactly to what they want to do and make sure that their clients have some success in using the home as a springboard to retirement, building generational wealth, all those good things. But the point is that when they see this, now they trust me as a more than just a loan originator. Now I'm a trusted advisor. So I can't tell you, like, the other part I'll say, Josh, is I'm also then was forced myself to commit to going and finding real estate planners or real estate attorneys. I had to go find certified financial planners and start making those meetings because I committed to my clients that this is what I'm going to do for them. So I had to also go and complete my workout, my engagements post closing, like all the different things that I'm going to talk to these people about for the next 3 years. So I was forced to do that, but it felt great because I knew I was providing so much more value. So that's the quick, fast story.
Dude, there's so much wisdom in there. I'm going to try to unpack it, and I want you to kind of continue layering on the wisdom. But the first thing that I took away was you watched 15 minutes of Ryan presenting this as if he was presenting to realtors. You were like, that's a great idea. I'm going to borrow whatever piece of the scripting that I remember from that, and I'm just going to try it out on a client. And we're going to figure out real quick if it's worth me going back and watching the rest of these videos. You
Yeah.
did it with two clients, and they were both like, where do I sign? We want to work with you. So the thing that I think that is so brilliant about that, Mark, I think there's a fatal flaw that some people think they have to aim, 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 and they never get around to firing. It's
Me
just a
too.
lot of aiming. And you learn so much more by firing. And there's this whole thing about the OODA loop. Do you know what the OODA loop is?
No.
It's a aviation theory, and it was born out of dogfights. That the faster that an aviator engages and then course corrects and then learns from the engagement and then changes their approach, the person in a dogfight to engage the fastest and then learn from the engagement has the higher percentage chances of winning. And some people are so busy aiming that they never get the benefit of the OODA loop, which is the lessons that you learn by actually doing the thing. You know, we talk a lot about it in the Loan Atlas that the genius is really never in the information. It's always in the execution and then what you learn from the execution. So first of all, just kudos for you for just grabbing a tiny piece of information going, that sounds valuable to me. Let's try it.
Yeah.
How'd you
Well,
have the
thanks.
courage to do that?
Well, I mean, I'm a believer in doing. I mean, that's we've. I'm not afraid of the results. I'm a process guy, so I'm a firm believer that I'm always willing to adapt and adjust. And I'm probably give a little credit to my dad. Back in the day, he said, "Hey, try something. If it works for you, great. If not, discard it and move on." So I'm always willing to try new things and adapt. But I saw instantly the value of it. Just I think I did a decent job of converting prospects through education, but this just took it to a deeper level of commitment to them and their understanding of how I differentiated myself from maybe some other, loan originator. And it's perfect because I had a call this morning with another client and basically asked, I said the same question that Ryan said, basically, tell me you've probably been through this process. Let me run through it. And they're like, yep, that's exactly what happened. And I used the exact same damn line. I'm sorry that happened to you, but let me explain to you the difference. By the 15 minutes into that call, and by the way, this was a realtor who referred me because they said, you got to talk to this guy. But 15 minutes into that call, I'm like, do you see the value and the difference kind of between what you were pre-approved with the other guy versus me? She's like, oh, Mark, I'm working with you. So, I mean, that's, it's gold.
So, Mark, for people who maybe aren't as familiar with the before, during, and after value proposition that we teach inside of the Atlas, why don't you just pretend like I'm a client? And if you had 60 seconds or 90 seconds to describe the before, during, and after value proposition and how you're different from other originators, what would that sound like? Like just off the cuff, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially, I would basically ask you, are you pre-approved and understand that this initial call is our goals and dreams call, because that's what I'm calling it as well. And I would just explain to them basically, do you want me to role play it or you just want me
Yeah.
to?
Go for it. Like just lay it on me as if as if I'm a first time caller. I'm on my first call with you, and you're starting to describe your differentiation.
Yeah. So Josh, thanks for jumping on the call with me. But essentially what we have here is, I want to better understand how to make you a successful homeowner. I want to understand, what you're looking to do now currently to buy a home. But more importantly, I want to share with you what the difference is working with me, maybe say than another traditional bank or another lender. So this part of the call is what I would call my dreams and goals call. So if you got 15 minutes, let's talk a little bit more about what's going on with you currently. So tell me, Josh, why are you looking to buy today? What's happening with you?
I mean, I've outgrown my home. My kids need a larger place, and it's way overdue for us to move. But these damn interest rates have been holding me back.
Okay. So that's the story that we hear from a lot of different potential buyers. But what's important is that we understand today what is going on with you. I guess I kind of screwed this up a little bit, Josh. Sorry.
Yeah,
But
role play.
basically,
Let's go.
but no, but basically, I didn't get to full explain that the difference between working with me, say, in another traditional bank or a lender is that I'm here for life. You're stuck with me for the next 20 years of your life. So, but the process really is now doing what's called the golden our dreams and goals call, and then moving towards doing a pre-purchase call, which is basically talks about should you, could you, and must you buy this home. And then the last part of that is where you're going to get the most value from me is, listen, I want to help you achieve your goal of home ownership, but essentially what we're looking to do here is make you a successful homeowner. And that really starts the day you close. And what happens then is really about 50-60% of value that I provide to you is going to be what happens after that. I want to make sure that you and your family are protected, that you have success in becoming a homeowner. And what that looks like is making sure that you're insured fully, making sure that you have protections, making sure that you're making good financial decisions, making sure that we're using this asset as a possibility to build wealth and generational wealth. So you're not just, going to work with me for the next 30 or 60 days to get pre-approved and buy a home. You're stuck with me for the rest of your life, or as long as I'm doing this business. So that's
I love it.
That's what I do.
And it's such a blue ocean strategy, right? Because the vast majority of people who do what we do are focused on conversations about rate. Maybe their valuation, their value proposition is the speed at which they can close and their 5-star reviews. But virtually nobody, unless you're inside the Loan Atlas and you've been learning this stuff, is talking about what can be done post consummation of the transaction to make sure that that family becomes a successful homeowner. And you talked about the post closing call. So just to kind of flush this out for everybody who's trying to wrap their arms around it, the Dreams and Goals call is all about finding out the motivation and the why of the family. What's important to them? What are they excited about? And what are they fearful of? Then, armed with that information, you can do the pre-purchase consultation that Mark alluded to, which is really a formal, either Zoom or in-person presentation where you're addressing those issues, you're teaching them, you're becoming a trusted advisor. Maybe you're teaching them about buy-down strategies. Maybe you're teaching them how to win on multiple offers. Whatever the most important thing is for your area and what's going on in your market. And then you talk to them about that post-closing value proposition. So are you working with a financial advisor? Do you have a trust set up? How are you going to hold title post-closing? And you tell them that you're going to have questions as you go through this home ownership journey. Should you refinance? Should you refinance and do cash out? Should you do a home equity line? Should you finish the basement? Should you put a pool in? I'm here for the next 30 years to make sure when you make those decisions, you don't have to make them in a vacuum. I'm here as your advisor to make sure that you're a successful homeowner. And that's what I think 99% of mortgage advisors are missing. That is a total blue ocean strategy.
Yeah, so I concur with all that. So Josh, I can tell you, I've probably talked in the last 2.5 years that I've been doing this. I may have talked to 1,000 people, and I think 2 people talked to me about rates. So I never talked about rates, and I never, ever had to deal with rates ever, because I never brought it up, and they never brought it up because they never needed to. So there's one other thing that's, I think that, I mentioned to you that when I saw what the Loan Atlas provides, I thought this was the holy grail. But when I saw Ryan's before, during, and after presentation, I thought that I was good. But there's a part in here that I have that I still use in my initial presentations that I think is valuable for everyone. And what it is that most of the buyers that I've talked to are first-time home buyers. And that can be a range of, early 20s all the way up into their 40s and 50s. But what I've found is that very few of them actually know how to buy a house. And so I have 3 things that I get involved in that Dreams and Goals call that I think are critical. And the first thing I talk about is, what are the 4 things that all lenders need? 2-year work history, gross income, FICO score, and debt to income ratio. So I cover those four things and I go into that because it kind of highlights what we're trying to accomplish in that first dreams and goals call. The second thing that I make sure that I cover in every call is, how do you buy a house? If I'm buying a house today and I got that big fat check, what am I bringing? What is that? What am I buying there? And it's really three things: down payment, fees, also known as cash to close, A, title, B, lender. And then the third part, which is prepaids, which is also broken into two components: homeowners insurance and property taxes. And they're going to see that on the loan estimate, but I've set them up already to understand that when you bring that check to the title company, this is what that money is paying for. And so I break that down to them, because then the next thing I talk about is, in 2 months, you're making for your first payment. And when you make that $2,000 payment, what is that money doing? Where is that going? Well, the lender's taking three parts of that, depending on whether you put 20% down or not. They're taking three parts of that: principal, interest, and mortgage insurance. But remember when we talked about the homeowner's insurance paying 15 months up front when you buy the house? Well, now a portion of that's going into the escrow fund to pay for the homeowner's insurance 1 year in advance, a year from today when you buy the house. And the other portion is going into property taxes that will end up getting paid at the end of the year by the lender. When I put that whole package together for them, they're like, holy shit, that's like, no one's ever explained that to me. But it's so simple, but it's so important. So then I review it. So now, do you see the value? Hey, we now know what it is that all lenders are going to look at. They're going to look at your 2-year work history. They're going to look at your gross income. They're going to look at your credit score, and they're going to let your debt to income ratio. Now, when you do get approved and you find your house, what is it that you're bringing that check to the table for title? Well, it's three things: your down payment, your fees. There's two of them: title and lender. And there's prepaids, homeowners insurance, and property taxes. Great. Now you bought the house. Now 2 weeks or 2 months, I'm painting that picture. 2 months down the road, when that first mortgage payment's done, just like you're paying rent now, what do you do? What's that check going towards? Well, it's going towards paying down principal, interest, mortgage insurance, and a portion of that goes into homeowners insurance, a portion goes in private. When they learn that, they're like, just that little bit has really done me justice in converting people, because they're educated and they've never heard any of that stuff before.
It's interesting. I was just on a webinar before we jumped on, Mark, and one of the members that asked the question, it actually wasn't a member, it was a non-member of Loan Atlas that asked the question, was like, I don't know what to say in that first call. I just, usually, have you bought a home before? Is this your first time? How did you meet Mark, the realtor? Fill out the application. Yeah. And he's like, I'm having a really hard time getting people to actually fill out the application. Like, my conversion rate's very low. And I'm like, man, slow down. Get to know that person, what's important with them, educate them and teach them, and gain trust before you trust. If you don't do those things and you don't have trust, you're not going to have influence. And the fact that you don't have influence is why they're not following through and doing the application. So
that's a simple way to do that right there, what I just explained. And I'll tell you one last thing that I also add into this. I always add an understanding of what is the market conditions today. So yeah. I always explain to them, there are two housing markets right now. There's the houses that just came on the market, which would have been on Tuesday. And then I walk them through. You do a little private showing, you and your realtor, and everybody else wants that new shiny object. You go through the private showings during the week. And then on Sunday, there's an open house, or maybe on Saturday. So that market is one of the housing markets. The second housing market that exists out there is something that's been around. If it's been sitting for 10 days or 2 weeks, that's old news. And I tell them, each of these markets requires a very particular tactic and strategy.
So
and if
good.
you don't have a realtor and a lender who understands that market and what are the tactics and strategies in order to get your offer accepted, you are going to be looking for a house for a long time. And so then I dive, if I feel like I haven't overloaded them and they're interested, I will then dive into the tactics and strategies of implementing, gap clause, escalator, all that good stuff, because that's the only way you're going to win today in where I'm at. I mean, my last 6 offers, we competed against 27 buyers, 20 buyers, 17 buyers, 11 buyers, and I think it was like 5 or 6. My conversion ratio is over 80% on my rate, or sorry,
Wow.
on my
Acceptance rate, right?
yeah, my acceptance
Yeah.
is over 80%, where according to Ryan, it's 16%. Because I know the market, and because I do the volume, I see the weekly trends. I know if we need to go from gap from 5,100 to 1,100 or 11,000 to 15,000. I know that. I've lost 40 over with a 21 gap, but I know we're close. We're always first or second.
Yeah. Man, so much wisdom. Mark, I'm going to leave you with the closing thought here, but I appreciate you sharing so generously. My number one takeaway from this call is you have to implement what you learn. So, number one, you have to be surrounded by an environment and a community where you can learn. But number two, you got to fire. You got to enter the OODA loop to learn and to see what's working and get better. Because I guarantee you, the 20th time you talk about the before, during, and after value proposition is going to be better than the first time. And the only way to get good is to get through the bad. So you might as well get through the bad quickly. So thank you for that. What closing words of wisdom or inspiration would you have for our listeners?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would sign up for the Loan Atlas. I mean, that's probably the wisest words I could say. Just there's so much knowledge and so much wealth of information that I would recommend that. So, and then as you said, I would just, you got to do it. You got to go try and implement things and test it out, and don't be afraid. Practice at home, and then practice in front of the mirror, and then just jump out there. You'd be amazed. I think someone told me once, you're not that important. So who cares if you mess up, right? So
Exactly.
just do it.
Exactly. I love it, man. Thanks for the kind words about the Loan Atlas. Thanks
Yeah.
for the advice and wisdom. And thanks for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate the call.